Commander Vex Prime of the Hegemony fleet stood before the massive viewing port of his flagship, the Dominator's Fist, watching the final human settlement burn. 3 years. 3 bloody, exhausting years it had taken to crush these primitive bipeds. But finally, mercifully, it was over. Sir, his aide, Lieutenant Crix, approached with what passed for a smile on his four-mandible face. The last resistance pocket on Terra 7 has been eliminated. The humans are extinct. Vex Prime's segmented eyes clicked with satisfaction. Excellent. Begin the salvage operations. I want every scrap of their technology catalogued before we glass the planet. Oh, how wrong he was. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, aren't we? You see, the Hegemony had made a classic mistake. They'd confused winning battles with understanding their enemy. Sure, they'd crushed every human fleet, obliterated every colony, and reduced Earth itself to a smoldering crater. But they'd missed something rather important. Humans were cockroaches in the best possible sense, deep beneath the ruins of what was once called New Geneva, in a bunker that even the Hegemony's deep-scan probes couldn't penetrate. A single cryopod hummed quietly. Inside, Captain Marcus Kane of the Terran Defense Corps slept peacefully, unaware that his species had just been declared extinct. The pod systems had been designed to wake him after exactly 1 standard year of hibernation. Unfortunately, the electromagnetic pulse from the orbital bombardment had fried the timer circuits. Instead of 1 year, Kane would sleep for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days, but who's counting, right? Above ground, the Hegemony was already celebrating. They'd thrown themselves quite the victory party, complete with ceremonial burning of human artifacts and speeches about the superiority of their civilization. Admiral Zeph Null, Supreme Commander of the Hegemony forces, had even commissioned a monument. Here lies humanity, they tried. How charmingly arrogant. The truth was, the humans had put up a fight that surprised everyone, including themselves. When the Hegemony first arrived with their 30,000 ship armada, expecting easy conquest, they'd encountered something they'd never faced before: pure, unadulterated stubbornness mixed with creativity that bordered on insanity. Take the Battle of Titan's Ring, for example. When Admiral Elena Vasquez realized her small fleet was hopelessly outnumbered, did she surrender like a sensible being? Of course not. She rigged her flagship's fusion core to overload, then rammed it straight into the Hegemony's command vessel while screaming something about human barbecue. The explosion took out 47 enemy ships. The Hegemony still had nightmares about that. Or consider the siege of Mars colony. When the humans ran out of ammunition, they started launching garbage. Literally. Old furniture, kitchen appliances, even someone's pet fish tank. The Hegemony's point defense systems, calibrated for missiles and energy weapons, couldn't cope with a washing machine traveling at 17,000 kilometers per hour, but the most disturbing thing about humans wasn't their reckless tactics or their refusal to accept defeat. It was their laughter. Even as their ships exploded around them, even as their cities burned, they kept laughing. Dark, bitter laughter that sent chills through every Hegemony spine. They're insane, Major Kex 9 had reported after the Battle of Europa Station. They know they're dying, and they think it's funny. Now, 3 years later, the galaxy was quiet. Peaceful. Boring, some might say. The Hegemony had resumed their normal activities, conquering primitive worlds, strip mining resources, and generally being the kind of galactic bullies that gave advanced civilizations a bad name. But deep in that buried bunker, something was stirring. Kane's cryopod emitted a soft chime. Warning lights began flashing in sequence: yellow, orange, red. The revival process initiated automatically, flooding his system with stimulants and cellular repair nanobots. Ice crystals sublimated from his skin as the temperature slowly rose. His eyes snapped open like a trap springing shut. For a moment, Kane lay perfectly still, letting his enhanced reflexes catalog every sound, every vibration. The bunker was quiet except for the hum of life support systems. No alarms, no weapon fire, no screaming. That was unusual. He sat up slowly, muscles protesting after 3 years of disuse. The revival drugs were already doing their work, but he still felt like he'd been hit by a freight shuttle. Multiple times. "Computer," he croaked, his voice raw from disuse. "Status report." The AI's synthetic voice filled the chamber, maddeningly cheerful as always. "Good morning, Captain Kane. You've been in cryo-sleep for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Current date, March 15, 2387. All bunker systems are operational." Kane frowned. 3 years? The mission brief had called for 12 months, maybe 18 at the outside. What about the surface? Status of the war effort? A pause. Even the AI seemed reluctant to deliver bad news. Surface scans indicate extensive orbital bombardment damage. No human life signs detected within sensor range. Communications networks are offline. "I'm sorry, Captain, but I believe the war is over." Kane's jaw tightened. Define over. Based on available data, the Terran Defense Corps has been defeated. Earth and all colonial worlds show signs of systematic destruction. The hegemony appears to have achieved total victory. For a long moment, Kane said nothing. He simply sat on the edge of the cryopod, staring at his hands. They were steady. That was good. Steady hands were useful for what came next. "Computer, what resources do we have available?" The bunker contains sufficient supplies for one person for approximately 6 months. Weapon stores include 147 pulse rifles, 63 plasma grenades, 28 anti-armor rockets, and 1 experimental quantum disruptor device. Vehicle bay contains 1 stealth reconnaissance ship in full working order. Kane allowed himself a thin smile. And the hegemony forces? Occupation fleet consists of approximately 2,000 vessels stationed throughout the former human territories. Main fleet concentration orbits the dead world formerly known as Earth. 2,000 ships against 1 man. The hegemony probably thought those were pretty good odds. They were wrong, but they'd find out soon enough. Kane stood up, his body finally responding normally. 3 years of war had taught him many things, but the most important lesson was this: humans didn't win through superior technology or overwhelming force. They won by refusing to quit when any sane species would have surrendered. He walked to the weapon locker, selected his favorite pulse rifle, and checked the charge. Full power. Perfect. "Computer, begin pre-flight checks on the ship. And start monitoring hegemony communications. I want to know everything they're doing, thinking, and planning." "Captain, if I may ask, what exactly do you intend to accomplish? The odds against you are mathematically impossible to overcome." Kane's smile widened, taking on an edge that would have terrified any hegemony commander who saw it. "You know what the problem with impossible odds is, computer?" "No, sir. They're only impossible if you play by the rules. And in case you haven't noticed." He chambered around in his rifle with a satisfying click. "I'm fresh out of rules to break." The bunker's lights flickered as the ship's systems came online. Somewhere above, hegemony patrols continued their lazy circuits, confident in their victory, secure in their dominance. They had no idea what was coming for them, but they were about to learn why humans laughed in the face of death, because sometimes, just sometimes, death laughed back. 3 weeks later, Admiral Zephnul was having the worst day of his exceptionally long military career. He stared at the tactical display in his command center, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid sequence, a sure sign of stress among his species. "Explain to me again," he said slowly, his voice carrying that dangerous calm that made junior officers wet themselves, "how a single ship managed to destroy an entire patrol fleet." Commander Hexvox shifted nervously, his carapace clicking. "Sir, the attack came without warning. Our sensors detected nothing until the moment of impact. The enemy vessel appeared to materialize directly inside our formation." "Ships don't just materialize, Commander. They follow the laws of physics, even human ships." If only he knew how wrong he was about that particular assumption. "You see, while the Hegemony had been busy celebrating their victory, they'd made another crucial error: they'd stopped studying human technology. After all, why waste time analyzing the weapons of an extinct species? This oversight was about to bite them in their collective posterior with the force of a neutron star. Kane's ship, the Phantom's Edge, wasn't just any reconnaissance vessel. It was humanity's last desperate attempt at creating something that could survive the war, equipped with experimental technology that pushed the boundaries of known science into territory that would make theoretical physicists weep with joy, the quantum phase drive, for instance. The Hegemony's scientists had dismissed it as impossible when they first encountered the technology, claiming that matter couldn't exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. They were technically correct, of course. Matter couldn't do that. Kane wasn't using matter anymore. "Sir." A technician's voice cracked with panic. "We're receiving reports from the mining operation at Kepler 442. The entire facility is gone." Zephnul's mandibles clicked together sharply. "Define gone." "As in, no longer exists, sir. The asteroid they were mining has been, well, it's been turned into modern art. Very explosive modern art." The Admiral's secondary stomach began producing stress acid. In the past 3 weeks, they'd lost 17 patrol ships, 4 supply convoys, 2 research stations, and now a major mining facility. All to a single human ship that appeared and disappeared like a ghost with a serious attitude problem. "How is this possible?" he muttered. "We destroyed them. Every last one. I watched their home world burn." What Zephnul didn't understand was that he'd only destroyed the humans who followed rules. Kane was something entirely different, a human who'd been pushed past the point where logic and sanity held any meaning. He'd been trained as humanity's last resort, their final card to play when the game was already lost, and the game had definitely been lost. Kane sat in the pilot seat of his ship, currently phased between dimensions in the shadow of a gas giant. He was studying the Hegemony fleet positions, planning his next move with the methodical patience of a predator. Computer, analysis of the target convoy. The AI's voice had developed what could only be described as an excited tone over the past weeks. Convoy 7 Alpha consists of 12 cargo vessels and 4 escort frigates. Cargo manifest indicates medical supplies and replacement parts bound for the Hegemony stronghold at Wolf 359. Kane smiled, that particular smile that had once made his commanding officers nervous. "Medical supplies, you say? How thoughtful of them to deliver exactly what we need." "Captain, I feel obligated to point out that intercepting medical supplies could be considered a war crime under galactic law." "Computer, are we currently at war?" A pause. According to official Hegemony records, the war ended 3 years ago with the complete extinction of humanity. Exactly. Since humans no longer exist, I can't possibly be committing war crimes. I'm just a ghost with unfinished business. The logic was absolutely insane. It was also completely bulletproof. Kane engaged the quantum drive. Reality twisted around the ship like taffy in a blender, and suddenly they were among the convoy, materializing between 2 cargo haulers with the timing of a stage magician. The Hegemony escorts reacted with impressive speed, all things considered. Their weapons powered up within seconds, targeting systems locking onto the human vessel. Unfortunately for them, seconds might as well have been centuries. Kane's finger barely touched the firing control. The experimental plasma lance he'd been saving for special occasions spoke with the voice of a miniature star. The first escort simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered across several light-years of space. "This is Escort Commander Nix Prime to unknown vessel," came a panicked transmission. "You are in violation of Hegemony space. Surrender immediately or face destruction." Kane opened a channel, his voice carrying across the void with casual amusement. "Hello there. I'm Captain Marcus Kane, Terran Defense Corps. I'm afraid your intelligence reports were slightly inaccurate about that whole human extinction thing." The silence that followed was so complete you could have heard a pin drop in vacuum. Finally, the escort commander found his voice. "That's impossible. Humans are extinct. We destroyed you all. Well, that's awkward, Kane replied, already lining up his next shot. Because I'm feeling remarkably unextinct right now. Tell you what, though. I'm in a generous mood today, so I'll make you a deal. You surrender those medical supplies, and I'll let you run home to tell your Admiral that his victory party was a bit premature. Never. The Hegemony does not negotiate with dead species. Kane sighed dramatically. You know, that's exactly the kind of attitude that got your friends killed. Computer, target their engines. Let's give them something to think about. The second escort lost its rear section in a brilliant flash of contained fusion. The ship spun helplessly, emergency systems screaming warnings in 17 different languages. The remaining escorts, showing more wisdom than their comrades, immediately powered down weapons and began broadcasting surrender signals. Much better, Kane said approvingly. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer those medical supplies to my cargo hold. Then you're going to send a message to Admiral Null. Tell him that Captain Kane sends his regards and is looking forward to their reunion. Within the hour, Kane had what he needed. But more importantly, he'd sent a message that would spread through the Hegemony fleet faster than a computer virus with abandonment issues. Humanity wasn't extinct. Humanity was angry. Back on the flagship, Null received the report with the kind of stunned disbelief usually reserved for discovering that mathematics had been wrong all along. One human, he said slowly. One single human is responsible for all of this? Yes, sir. And sir? He wants to meet with you. Says he has a proposition. The Admiral's laugh was bitter enough to strip paint. A proposition? What could one human possibly offer us? He said to tell you he's willing to discuss terms for our surrender. The command center fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Null stared at the tactical display showing their losses, their scattered fleets, their demoralized troops. One human. One impossible, unstoppable, completely insane human. Sir, his aide ventured quietly. Your orders? Null's mandibles clicked together in thought. The rational part of his mind insisted this was absurd. You didn't negotiate with extinct species. You didn't surrender to single ships. You certainly didn't take demands from someone who technically didn't exist, but then again, the rational part of his mind had also assured him that humans were primitive savages who would fold at the first sign of superior force. That had worked out brilliantly. Open a channel, he said finally. Let's hear what the impossible human has to say. Somewhere in the void between stars, Kane smiled as his communication array came to life. The Hegemony was about to learn the most important lesson in human military doctrine. It's not over until the human says it's over, and Kane was just getting started.